Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional league, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, guys. I'm your host, Marcus Vargas, and in today's show, we're going to be talking some quarterback rankings right before the draft. We'll be talking a little bit about the draft, maybe some Cowboys, and a little bit more. So, we got a packed show for you today, guys, as we always do. But to start off the show today, guys, I'm going to start off with some early quarterback rankings right before the draft. So this will be the last list that I have before the draft. It's coming up very, very soon here. I believe it is on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Now, guys, this list, it's similar to lists that I've had before, but with free agency and all that, we've had to make some moves and certain situations with certain quarterbacks from America's favorite team. So to start off this list, guys, I actually want to preface this by saying there is no bias involved here, guys. I know I poke fun at the Cowboys and the Patriots, and I tell you guys I'm a hater. I'm honest there. I won't lie, to you guys. And, even though I do it for the comedy aspect, I do still respect all of these players, no matter what team they're on, even if they're on rival teams, et cetera, et cetera. If they can play, and I rank them accordingly. So, with that being said, let's get started here. At number 1, guys, I have Patrick Mahomes, quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I completely understand anyone picking Lamar Jackson here. Lamar Jackson was an absolute monster last year. We've talked about him plenty on the show. I know you guys have heard all about him on any other show that you listen to about football or fantasy football. The running attack is just absolutely lethal there in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson's for sure. He set records. He was absolutely insane, and a lot of people don't think that that's going to stop. They think that's going to continue. However, the reason why I have Patrick Mahomes here is because he showed, he has a bigger sample size, let's say, of his elite skill set and lethality on the football field. Also, the only reason Patrick Mahomes wasn't closer to number 1 last year, I'm not saying he would have been, was because he missed several games and was constantly playing with nagging injuries. Now, Patrick Mahomes doesn't run as much as Lamar Jackson. That's obvious. No one does. However, if you paid attention towards the end of the season and throughout the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes showed the world, I can do this on my legs if I need to. He was doing his, he wasn't wiggling like Lamar Jackson, but he was putting the team on his back and running. Anyone who watched that Titans game, the AFC Championship game, you saw that run right before the half ended. That was absolutely amazing. Spinning out defenders, breaking tackles, almost fumbling, but still getting it in the end zone. I think next year Patrick Mahomes keeps that up, shows us he is a mobile quarterback indeed. And also, the team is, 95% intact. That offense hasn't really lost anyone. So, you're still pairing him with Tyreek, Travis Kelce. Mecole Hardman's going to take a step forward, I believe, in his second year. Sammy Watkins is still on the team. Demarcus Robinson's still on the team. He lost Blake Bell, the backup tight end. LaShawn McCoy, a running back who didn't really do much for him anyway. He still has Damian Williams, Darrell Williams, Darwin Thompson, and they picked up DeAndre Washington from the Raiders, former Raiders player who is serviceable as well. So, Patrick Mahomes has lost nothing. He's only going to get better the more and more he plays football. We're entering, now, his 4th year in the NFL. So, Patrick Mahomes I have as number one right now, but I understand why you would have Lamar Jackson there as well. I just feel that with all those weapons, Patrick Mahomes has the potential, the only quarterback with the potential to outperform Lamar without, running that ball a ton. Now, number 2 on my list here before the draft, I have Lamar Jackson. Of course, I've already said it 1,000 times. He could be number 1. His running potential is outstanding. However, I'm predicting a dip in production for Lamar Jackson, and here's why. Because, the Bills had sort of a recipe to figure out Lamar Jackson. The 49ers gave Lamar Jackson trouble. The Chiefs didn't really the Chiefs didn't figure out how to stop Lamar, let's say with high defensive play, but if you put points up on the board, that slows them down a ton. So high-powered offenses can take advantage of the fact that running the ball chews a lot of clock, and when the Ravens are playing from behind, they can't afford to run the ball as much. We saw the Titans demolish the Ravens in the playoffs. Now, they weren't as high-flying as the Chiefs, but they sort of took that similar approach. They took that lead, and I predicted this before that game. I said if the Titans get the ball first and they score, the game is essentially over because Derrick Henry has been on an absolute tear. Now, they didn't get score as soon as they got the ball, but they scored before Baltimore did, and after that it was over. Baltimore never took the lead. So, teams have figured that out. They figured out, we can beat them at their own game. Lamar Jackson is just, he's hyper efficient at running the football, but it doesn't mean other teams can't beat them at their own game. Also, guys, I haven't seen, now I get it, I'm probably going to get, criticized for this take here, but I haven't seen enough from Lamar Jackson passing the ball to elevate him to number 1 over someone who's as generational as Patrick Mahomes throwing the football with the ability to scramble as well. Now, I get it. The touchdown to interception ratio and the touchdown percentage per attempts, Lamar Jackson lit it up. But, guys, we have to remember that a lot of that has to do with the threat of the run. A lot of teams are so scared of Lamar pulling the ball down and running that also affects pass coverage. Also, I will say, Patrick Mahomes didn't repeat his 50 touchdown season, and his 5,000 yards. That's for a reason. Teams study, teams figure you out. I don't believe that Lamar Jackson is going to have as much success passing the football that he had this past season. It was actually, he did very, very well, and it was unreal. But we do have to remember, a lot of those came against poor defenses. Even though he did show up at certain times against good defenses, we do have to remember, those stats do get inflated. You play the Dolphins, you play the Bengals twice a year. The Browns were no crazy defense. You're playing them twice a year. So you play the Steelers, who have a solid defense. However, their offense can't keep. They can't stay on the field and score. So, there are a lot of nuanced things that go into it. But that aside, when we saw Lamar Jackson last in the playoffs against the Titans, when he had to make the throws to win the game, we saw him fold under the pressure. I think he threw the ball, maybe 50 attempts and did basically nothing with that. You give Patrick Mahomes 50 attempts to throw the football, he's probably throwing 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. So I just want to see more from Lamar Jackson throwing the football, then he's for sure shot number 1 fantasy football quarterback. Until then, though, I have him at a second, but a close second, behind Patrick Mahomes, the reigning Super Bowl MVP. Now, at number 3 here, guys, I got Kyler Murray. Now, some people may not like this pick, but here's why I have Kyler Murray here. Last season, Kyler Murray finished as a top 10 fantasy football quarterback in his rookie year. His top wide receiver, very aging Larry Fitzgerald. His other receivers, Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella, no slouches. However, they're not household names no one were writing home about, right? So, add DeAndre Hopkins to that top 10 fantasy football quarterback talent, and fireworks are going to happen. I think, when I look at it, I think previously I had Kyler higher than his old ranking, which was, I believe, was 7 or 8. He finished last season. I moved him up there, And I would have moved him up there prior to the DeAndre Hopkins trade. So now that he gets DeAndre Hopkins, it feels like it's only right to move him even higher. Losing David Johnson does nothing to Kyler Murray's value. And we have to remember that last season, he only threw 20 touchdowns, but had a top 10 finish. He's also mobile, guys. You do have to remember that. He's quick. He's not Lamar Jackson. He doesn't have all that, sort of wiggle, but he's got amazing straight line speed. He's a quick little guy. He's agile, and he can get to the end zone on his legs, and I think we'll see a lot more of that as well. So it's just adding on to that. So basically, take what he did last season and add 8 touchdowns onto that now that he has DeAndre Hopkins, you know what I mean, and a few hundred more yards. So it's going to be definitely something to see. I do believe that, the Cardinals are sort of dark horses. I know, they're not shooting up power rankings and stuff, but we have to pay attention to them because they're a sort of, maybe possibly a sleeping baby giant. So we'll see. So I have Kyler Murray at number 3 for that reason. His weapons are great. He's mobile, and I think he's going to take a step forward in his second year, like we saw from Mahomes, like we saw from Lamar, and I think he's got a lot more to prove and do. So number 3, and I think that number 3 is, I think it's good for him. I don't think he surpasses Lamar or Patrick. But with those top 3 guys, we're going to go into our short break here. And when we get back, we'll continue these rankings and yeah, we'll just keep it going. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back after this short break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right. Welcome back, guys, to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We just got done beginning our pre-draft QB rankings for the fantasy football season. We got to number 3, Kyler Murray, and we're going to just continue from there. So number 4, guys, that I have on this list is Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks. Honestly, Russell Wilson is a top 5 guy for me because he's just so consistent, so reliable. And one thing, if you haven't noticed about a lot of these guys on this list, and every single one that I've listed so far, they all can scramble and run the football. That's a huge, huge trait for fantasy football guys. I mean, it's great to have a guy who's not going to turn the ball over, who can throw bombs, who throws deep touchdowns, or has great deep threats on his team. However, when you have a quarterback who can run the football, it's like having 2 positions in one, in a sense, right? Because, a quarterback can throw for 250 and 3 touchdowns, but if he adds 50 yards on the ground, or maybe, 30 yards and a touchdown, that's really, really valuable because, that touchdown is going to be equaling 6 points and not 4, if you're doing, standard scoring. So, again, Russell Wilson here at number 4, I think, he still has DK Metcalf, who's going to take a step forward, I believe, and he showed in his rookie campaign that he does have what it takes, to possibly be a number 1 in this league. I know a lot of people, he had an amazing combine, but he didn't have the best, wide receiver drills. He had, his physicals, his 40, bench press, vert jump, he was a freak of nature, but there were concerns, and that's why he slipped so far. I believe he slipped to the 3rd or 4th round. But regardless, Russell Wilson does have those weapons. Tyler Lockett's still on that team. Russell Wilson, I'll remind you, finished as number 3 last year, so not too far of a dip. I think it's not necessarily about Russell Wilson dipping in production, rather Kyler Murray taking such a big leap forward that he overtakes Russell Wilson in this spot here. But could easily see Russell Wilson being top 3 again, top 5 for sure. Now, after Russell Wilson here, guys, at number 5, I finally have Deshaun Watson, and honestly, guys, I wanted to rank him a bit lower, if I'm going to be completely honest here, because, yes, the greatest quarterbacks can do it, no matter who are their receivers, but DeAndre Hopkins is once in a lifetime sort of talent. He's a generational guy. He's so reliable, great security blanket, dices up defenses. It's just a great receiver. Now, this is not too far of a dip. Deshaun Watson finished number 4 last season on fantasy football, so he drops a spot for me. Honestly, I could see him dropping lower, maybe 6, even 7 on some people's rankings. But I keep him here, though, because Deshaun Watson is a great clutch, mobile quarterback. Again, that's the key here. These guys are mobile. These are going to be the top 5 guys who can get it done with their legs as well. Also, Deshaun Watson, yes, even though he loses DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks isn't a bum by any means, right? Brandon Cooks got burners, and he's a nice deep threat. Him and Will Fuller side by side are going to be taking the tops off of defenses for sure. Not to mention, even though this was not an equal trade whatsoever, David Johnson does have receiving potential. He's a good receiving back as well, along with Duke Johnson. So Deshaun Watson has a lot of weapons to pick from here. I'm not saying that they're as good as DeAndre Hopkins, but I remind you guys he did get Randall Cobb as well. So it's Randall Cobb, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, David, and Duke Johnson. So he has a lot of options. While I don't think one of them is going to become the clear-cut guy like DeAndre Hopkins was, I think sort of his points just get spread out between those guys, but he can still be successful in fantasy football. And I think one thing that does keep me ranking him in the top 5 is that I feel that he's going to need to carry the games a bit more on his legs. I think instead of scrambling and holding on the ball too long to look for that dynamite play to DeAndre or something, he's going to have less trust in his receivers that might just tuck the ball and go for it. So, I mean, he already ran the ball quite a bit. I just see a bit more next season. So, Deshaun Watson I have at number 5, guys, but I could easily see, people not ranking him as a top 5 guy. Still top 10, but, definitely going to lose some value because he lost such a good receiver. Now, for my number 6 fantasy football quarterback next season, pre-draft, of course, here is where I have Dak Prescott. Now, to this as compared to his ranking last season, of course, is much lower. But the reason why I have Dak Prescott here is actually because of his recent issues that he's had off the field and because of the contract situation. And I'm not saying, this is not sort of I don't like what Dak Prescott did, therefore I'm ranking him lower. This is because I fear a potential holdout by Dak Prescott. The fact that they haven't gotten this deal done, still to this day is very concerning in my opinion. It shows me that the Dallas Cowboys aren't necessarily sold on Dak Prescott as their quarterback of the future and moving forward with him as the leader. To an extent, because they did offer him what I believed was more than a fair contract, Now, he does still have the weapons. He does, still have the great same offensive coordinator. But if he's going to potentially miss games, that in and of itself is going to hurt his fantasy value, right? He's not going to be there for a game or two, who knows. You're not getting points there. You're losing games because he's not your starting quarterback. So we do have to be wary of that. However, other than that, though, guys, still has Amari Cooper, still has Michael Gallup, still has Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's still going to put up numbers. I fear that holdout, the tension that it's building between him and the team, if he threatens to miss, the offseason, he's already said he's going to miss the OTAs. If he doesn't have a deal, What about training camp? New system, new coach, that terminology, you're going to want to learn all that stuff. Even though it's, same coordinator, the new coach, I could probably bet is going to have, some new ideas implemented, maybe some new terminology, new plays, things of that nature. So that is what concerns me. Otherwise, if the deal gets done and Dak comes back and, all can be forgotten, because it seems that the relationship sort of is kind of going up in flames a bit here. The fact that, I don't know, Dak Prescott must be asking for some ridiculous amount of money for this deal to have not been done yet. Hopefully that doesn't affect the play. But we'll have to see. I have him at number 6, which I think is respectable. The Cowboys tend to do cowboy things. While he did do great last season, honestly, some wild things happening in Dallas and them just being horrible next season wouldn't be too much of a surprise, would it, guys? Oh, excuse me, guys. Excuse me. So with that, we have our number 6 quarterback. Now, for our number 7 guy, right here, I have Drew Brees, and this might be a shock to a lot of people. He's aging. It's his last year. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think he's going to be a man on a mission, and for reasons I'm going to touch on this later. I believe, and I would really like to see the New Orleans Saints make a splash trade on draft day and pick up one of the wide receivers from this what's been talked about as one of the deepest wide receiver classes. I think getting one of these rookies to just pair alongside Michael Thomas would be very, very beneficial for that team as a whole and can help them get over the hump. I think about a guy like Justin Jefferson is lighting up. Sort of, he's sort of glowing up the closer and closer we get to draft day. And, he's a huge guy who had a great 40 time, can, be a deep threat. Maybe a guy like Henry Ruggs who can absolutely take the top off a defense. I know they added Emmanuel Sanders, but honestly, guys, Emmanuel Sanders hasn't done much in quite some time. He's getting older. Doesn't really help your case as a wide receiver. And, Michael Thomas needs some help. Not that he needs the help, but he needs another threat. And that would open up their offense even more. Can you imagine a team with Michael Thomas, Henry Ruggs, and Alvin Kamara? That'd be pretty insane, right? So I have Drew Brees here, guys, because, when he did come back from the injury, he was averaging 20-plus points per game. He's still hyper efficient, still a great quarterback. Yes, he can have that occasional random game where he's only going to score 11, but he's super reliable, guys. Michael Thomas isn't going anywhere. Even if he just had Michael Thomas, that elevates Drew Brees to another level. So, Drew Brees, I have here as my number 7 guy. So, keep an eye on him, even though he's older, guys. Even though, they don't, he only has Michael Thomas at this point. Look for them to get a receiver and for him to put up some good fantasy numbers. So, with that, guys, we'll take a short break and we'll wrap up the last few guys here I have at the bottom of the list, and then we'll keep the show going. So, we're going to take a quick break, guys. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back, and let's keep this thing going. We just reached number 7 on the list, I believe it was, and now we're going to keep it going. So I finished talking there about Drew Brees, and now I'm going to move on to a young, mobile guy who could possibly actually rank higher when the season's all said and done. Number 7 quarterback I have here for the pre-draft rankings, Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. Now, in my previous ranking, I believe I had Josh Allen a bit higher, but with some moves that I expect to happen during draft day, at least for the Saints, I had to move him down a bit here. Now, Josh Allen has a lot of potential, right? He has an absolute cannon. And he can run a ton. You know, we saw that during the season last year. We saw it in the playoffs last season. You know, when he got that receiving touchdown, we got flipped over and he tackled into the end zone. You know, he's an athletic guy, and you know, no doubt about that. However, where he lacks is the accuracy category, and it's definitely not one that we can just overlook, right? You know, he's a quarterback. Accuracy is probably the most important thing that he can have, and right now he just makes too many errant throws, throws too many interceptions without the touchdown production to counteract it. I will say this though, guys, you know, that's probably the only reason he's not ranked higher, you know, with all of those other mobile guys. Josh Allen finished the season last year at number 6 for fantasy football quarterbacks. I have him here number 8 because, you know, I have Drew Brees playing a full season of football and being able to outscore him there, and Dak Prescott continuing, you know, his offensive, you know, that offense was a powerhouse last season. I expect that to most likely continue. Josh Allen, though, you know, it's just tough because I want to put him higher because he can run the ball so well, but I mean, the touchdown production is not there. I think the addition of Stephon Diggs is definitely going to help him. I think it could even propel him, you know, to maybe number 7, number 6 finish again. But we're going to have to wait and see. He's going to have to take a step forward. It's not just like you add Stephon Diggs and therefore Josh Allen's going to be great. I think, you know, there's things he still has to improve within his own game to complement, you know, that addition of Stephon Diggs, and then we can see, you know, a surge forward. You know, he didn't necessarily take that surge forward like the other guys, you know, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and so we're still sort of waiting for that surge. If that surge, you know, comes, you know, next season, a little later than the other guys, and for sure he's going to be possibly even in the top 5 with his legs, and with Stephon Diggs catching balls for him. But as of right now, guys, I see him in the lower tier of the top 10 with the potential to possibly crack at least the top 6, top 5. So Josh Allen there I have as my number 8. There's not much to say about the guy. You know, he has a lot of potential. He has, you know, the mobility and the ability to run the ball, but we just got to see him take care of the football and let's have more accurate throws. Now, at number 9, guys, have here Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers. And yes, you know, I love Aaron Rodgers personally. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch play. And it saddens me that I have to put him here at number 9, but I think it's appropriate. Last season, he finished as fantasy's number 9 quarterback, and I think he kind of stays right where he is. You know, for a while, we've seen Aaron Rodgers have the touchdown totals in the 20s. You know, he's not having these crazy seasons like he had a few years ago when he had, I think, 40-plus touchdowns. But, you know, you know, there were no additions, no crazy additions. The Packers would have to draft a highly talented wide receiver for me to change this, but this is why these are our pre-draft rankings. As of right now, I think he stays where he is. Still a top 10 guy with potential to move up a couple spots because he's Aaron Rodgers and he's, you know, just a bad man, as Stephen A. Smith says. He's great. He still has Davante Adams, who hopefully will play every game next season and be 100%. If we get 100% healthy, 16 games of Davante Adams, then Aaron Rodgers could possibly slide up 8 or 7. But as of right now, it is what it is. I have him at number 9, mostly also because he takes care of the football. He's not a guy who turns the ball over very, very much. So, you know, without those crazy 30, 40 touchdown seasons, he's not losing any points in fantasy football. So we do have to remember that as well. You know, some guys just lose a ton of points because of interceptions and fumbles. So imagine what Jameis Winston's season would have been like had he halved his interceptions or even only thrown like 10, let's say. But that's number 9. Number 10 here, guys, I had a little bit of a debacle because I wanted to put someone else in here, but as of right now, I just couldn't justify it. So right now, number 10, I have Matt Ryan. of the Atlanta Falcons. And last season, he finished as fantasy football's number 11 quarterback. He missed a game, had a terrible game in Tampa Bay that sort of felt like an anomaly. And I know that probably is what had kept him from cracking the top 10. But he still has Julio Jones. He still has Calvin Ridley. They added Todd Gurley, who can catch passes, who I think is definitely better than Devontae Freeman was. And, I think that, losing Austin Hooper I don't think is going to affect them that much. I think Hayden Hurst will be a respectable replacement. That's a high-powered offense. They have a lot to prove. They have really not been who they used to be since losing that Super Bowl. And I think Matt Ryan, a lot of people tend to sleep on him. We have to remember he's a former MVP. He threw for 4,400 plus yards last season, 26 touchdowns. He just has to fix that interception total. He'll easily be in the top 10 fantasy football quarterback rankings. Now, the guy I wanted to slip in here, guys, and I'm going to mention him. He's number 11, Carson Wentz of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, some people might look at me like I'm crazy, but Carson Wentz is an immense talent. And, it's not just because I live in Philadelphia and a lot of my friends are Eagles fans that I'm putting him here. Carson Wentz finished as fantasy football's number 10 quarterback last season, guys. So he could easily finish as number 10 again. And I expect that during the draft, the Eagles are going to pick up a receiver, and then you can definitely put Carson Wentz in the 10. In the top 10 fantasy football quarterback finishes. He was outstanding. He showed us that he can carry a team. He carried that team to playoffs, and unfortunately, one thing that does, that is justifiable to keep him out of the top 10 would be his injury history. The fact that he can't stay on the field, all 16 games, even though he did for the regular season, but we saw him get injured in the playoffs. He's been injured multiple times in the past. He's played hurt, constantly playing through injuries. So that's the biggest concern with Carson Wentz, but the guy's talented. He was having an MVP season, the year they won the Super Bowl. We know what he can do with no one. So we'll see what he can do, with an addition in the draft and with the team moving forward. So that's my top 10 asterisk, a little 11 quarterbacks for next year's fantasy football season before the draft. Of course, I'll do an updated version after the draft and after some other moves are made. But I do want to say, those, I think the 1 through 5, I think those are going to stay. I don't think any of them will dip out of the top 5. But I think, you could mix around some of the guys in the 6 through 10 category. I think those guys, a lot of them have a lot of upside to push forward in the rankings. And Carson Wentz, easily I could see him moving into the top 10. So, with that, guys, just to recap the list here, I had Patrick Mahomes at 1, Lamar Jackson at a very close 2nd, Kyler Murray 3rd, Russell Wilson 4th, Deshaun Watson 5, Dak Prescott 6, Drew Brees 7, Josh Allen 8, Aaron Rodgers 9, Matt Ryan 10, and Carson Wentz asterisk 11, possibly could crack the top 10, very possible. So, with that, guys, that finishes our list here. We're going to move on to some in other news talk, possibly some draft talk after this short break here. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Guys, we enter this segment with In Other News, guys. And basically what In Other News is just me talking about trending or otherwise not trending topics in the NFL. And I just want to give you guys my opinions on those. So they could be basically about anything. Today, I want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Reports surfaced recently that they could be preparing for a holdout from their star running back, Joe Mixon. Now, if this was, a few years ago, then maybe I wouldn't be as concerned, but holding out has sort of become a trend in the NFL. Not saying that it's a bad thing or a bad trend. I certainly can understand why guys hold out, why they want to, have a ton of guaranteed money. Life after football is tough for a lot of people, so they want to secure their future. I get it. Totally get it. Respect it. It's certainly a noble cause, and it takes a lot of courage by these guys. So, but it does suck, for us fantasy football managers, when our star running backs aren't playing the first couple of weeks. It is tough, missing out on those games and not being able to watch these guys do what they love to do, and do what they're great at. So that does stink. But just to move on, Joe Mixon potentially holding out definitely concerns me. One, because he's a solid fantasy football running back who I expect to take a step forward next season. He started off the season very slowly last year, but towards that second half of the season was becoming very, very productive, and I expected him to continue that momentum next season. If he does end up holding out, that also spells concern for the likes of Joe Burrow, who is basically unanimously the favorite to be the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. Of course, crazy things can happen, but everyone's expecting him to go number 1. If he doesn't have a solid run game, to help spread the field and open the field up, that's definitely going to hurt his production. Of course, if he's, the generational talent that people expect him to be, then that won't be necessarily a problem, right? But we have yet to see that. I expect that if he doesn't have the best running game, that defenses are just going to send the house at him, confuse him and cause some trouble in his rookie campaign. And that, of course, hurts the fantasy value of other players on that team as well. Tyler Boyd, A.J. Green, should he finally stay healthy, John Ross. But either way, guys, if Joe Mixon is going to be holding out and that becomes, more of a bigger and obvious concern the closer we get to, the season beginning, then you have to wait on him. I don't see any reason to sort of keep Joe Mixon at his, drafting him early as one of the top running backs. I don't see that risk being necessarily worth it, as he wasn't a guy who was a top 5 or even top 10 running back last season. So it is concerning, but if they can't get this deal done, I fear sort of the Melvin Gordon treatment for Joe Mixon. A guy who's overvaluing himself. He wants a ton of money, and I think this certainly has to do with Christian McCaffrey's recent mega deal on that extension as to why Joe Mixon is saying, I want my money now, I'm next up, basically. And I hope that he's not asking for Christian McCaffrey money. While he's a great running back, he certainly is not in that sort of tier or caliber. If he does, they can't get the deal done, we're going to be talking about potential landing spots for Joe Mixon and what that means for fantasy football. And the Bengals are going to be looking for a running back in this draft. So we'll see what happens. Of course, it's a little bit concerning. His draft stock may slide. And if he misses games, that's going to be an issue as well. So we're going to keep our eyes on this because it's relatively new. There's not many details about it, but that's definitely something to keep your eyes on. Now, I want to move on to this next topic here because this one I think is definitely very interesting, guys. Leonard Fournette and the Jaguars could be splitting very, very soon, guys. Now, recently Leonard Fournette went out public for his, adoration for Cam Newton and voice his opinions on the fact that the Jaguars should sign Cam Newton and he wants to play with him, etc., etc. In a since deleted tweet, he also made reference to Blake Bortles sort of being the reason that they did not make the Super Bowl back in, I think it was 2017, when that defense was absolutely absurd and they almost beat the Patriots. But basically the tensions have risen too much One staff member from that team, I believe, actually said he's been in the pain in the A, money sign, and they're basically done with him. So look for the, Leonard Fournette, guys, to be shopped during the draft or right before the draft, guys. I think this could be pretty insane. One team people are just preliminarily talking about is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, while I think that adding Leonard Fournette could be very, very interesting, I think I'd rather take a chance on, one of the rookies in the draft. Leonard Fournette being described as, sort of a pain, could be difficult. I think the locker room situation in Kansas City is very good right now. There's great leadership, especially with Tyrann Mathieu on the defensive side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. These are all great guys. The locker room's great. I don't know, how adding Leonard Fournette to that mix could shake things up. However, I will say this, just to counter my own point there, is there a better team to go to? Because they have Tyrann Mathieu, such a good leader, Andy Reid, a guy who's known for giving guys second chances and helping them succeed. I think, also going to a winning team changes a lot. Everything is always great when you're winning. You see past all the bad things, the troubles, the drama. You look past that when the team's going 12-4, 11-5, constantly in playoffs. But when the team's losing, that's when all the stuff comes out and there's tension and teams want to get rid of guys. So it's very interesting. It's something you're going to want to monitor. If Leonard Fournette ends up on the Chiefs, he shoots up draft boards for sure. Do the Chiefs need that sort of epic running back, a great guy who can carry and be a workhorse? I don't know if they need that necessarily. They just basically need an average run game to push them over the top, because last season I think no running back had over 500 yards. It was pretty pathetic. But should they feel that they need to add this, that would be pretty insane, and definitely you're going to want to draft Leonard Fournette as the top running back next season. He would be dynamite with that offense. Now, no one knows what's going to happen, but this is something we're definitely going to want to keep our eyes on. If Leonard Fournette goes, not many teams need running backs, but if he's shopped, look for the Jaguars to pick up one of the rookie running backs in this draft class. DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor. If they add one of those talented guys to their team, he's going to be fantasy relevant because he's going to be an instant starter in place of Leonard Fournette. So this is going to be a very interesting situation to keep our eyes on. Definitely one to watch during draft day. It's going to be very, very interesting. I'm hoping if he ends up on the Chiefs that they do not package Chris Jones in a deal to send there. I know that they are looking to shop Yannick Ngakoue possibly, so they would sort of replace that sort of pass rushing ability with Chris Jones. If that happened, and I could, we got rid of D Ford recently when at a time when I thought he had, one of his best seasons, and I didn't think he would be shopped. So we'll see what happens here. Definitely very interesting. Chiefs right now are the team that people are talking about, but there's no word from, the actual Chiefs staff, the GM, that they're interested in picking up Leonard Fournette. So keep your eyes on him. Very, very interesting stuff. Now, guys, for my last topic here of this segment, I gotta admit, I was wrong about something. I missed on one of my takes in a previous show. I talked about O.J. Howard potentially being a breakout candidate on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then, of course, with my luck, news breaks that the Buccaneers are actively shopping O.J. Howard and looking to trade him. So, a lot of my take had to do with the fact that O.J. Howard is going to get a great quarterback who likes to throw to the tight end, and I think, he's a stud, he's very athletic, and he has, he can be better than Cameron Brate. Well, the Buccaneers didn't think so, and Bruce Arians must not like the kid because he is gone, essentially. I think this is it for him. They showed us last season they weren't very interested in using him that much. And, it's really going to depend on what team he goes to, whether or not he's going to be productive. It's not, O.J. Howard's not talented enough for me to say wherever he goes he's going to be great. And what really stinks about it is, before Tom Brady left, I had thoughts that maybe O.J. Howard on a team like the Patriots would be great. They really need a tight end. And, O.J. Howard could still land on the Patriots. That's definitely a team that people are talking about. But I'm really unsure what he's going to do there with not really any talent at quarterback. The one team that I probably would really want to see him go to for the most possible potential success would be the Green Bay Packers. They're in desperate need of a tight end. They don't have anything. Jimmy Graham was way out of his prime, and now he's on the Bears. So I think, giving Aaron Rodgers that sort of weapon, an athletic guy who was having a great season just a couple years ago before he was injured, could be very, very productive. Other than that, guys, if he's not going to Green Bay, I really just don't know. Some folks are talking about the Washington Redskins, because Jordan Reed really didn't pan out. He's constantly injured, constantly having concussions, and eventually the team letting him go. Vernon Davis recently retired. They need a tight end, but Dwayne Haskins, I have no real hope. I mean, I have hope. I won't say that. I was not impressed by what I saw last season. I'm not sure how fast he's going to develop. People have also talked about the Cincinnati Bengals, but again, a lot of other teams that we're talking about here don't have the greatest proven quarterback situation, and Green Bay does. So, O.J. Howard, I was wrong on, guys. Thought he was going to break out next season. Don't believe he will be breaking out unless he's in Green Bay. But we'll have to see. With that, though, guys, we are going to end our In Other News segment for today. And after this, we're going to talk about a sort of interesting, more fun topic. We're going to talk uniforms. I'm going to be listing my top 10 favorite uniforms in the league right now because a lot of teams have been updating their unis. So, stick around, guys, and after the short break, we'll be talking about uniforms.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Everybody, welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Guys, we're going to move into a more fun topic for today. Why not? This has been a very stressful and chaotic time, and this doesn't really have to do with fantasy football, but it's something I enjoy a lot and something very, very fun. Guys, I want to talk about uniforms today, and honestly, I've touched on it before, and I've touched on how I love, throwbacks and when teams switch it up, but recently there's been a lot of buzz surrounding uniforms and who needs to change them, because, the Browns came in with the new designs, the Falcons came in with the new designs, the Buccaneers come in with new uniforms, and then the Colts come in with whatever they thought that was. Now, I just want to talk about some of my favorite uniforms. This is no sort of ranking list, from best to worst, or, who's has the top 10. This is just uniforms that I think are really, really cool. Uniforms that don't necessarily need to be updated. And maybe I'll talk about some that I believe really need some tweaking and freshness. So to start off the list, guys, I want to talk about perhaps, these are definitely some of my favorite uniforms. And also, I will say, I'm talking about the teams as a whole, not just sort of one set. I'm not saying, when I talk about a team's uniforms, I'm not saying, hey, just their color rush or just their away alternate, things like that. I'm talking about, the whole scheme. And so a team with some of my favorite uniforms has to be the Seattle Seahawks. I think they have a plethora of options. I know they have an all-gray alternate. They have the all-neon green. And I think just even their regular home and away, their home with having the hint of neon in the uniform, the gray. I think it's all very, very original. It's not just an all sort of bland navy blue. It's just, I think it's the neon that's also in their logo. It's in the eye of the Seahawk, actually. I'm pretty certain of that. That's why I love that they add that into the uniform, because it also represents their logo. It represents all colors of their logo. I think it's very, very cool, and they do it in such a good way where it's not just like, oh, this looks like a college football team's, uniform. It's very professional, it's very sleek, and it's very clean. The Seahawks, definitely have great uniforms. That all neon green, I still can't get over it. I know some people think it's gross, it's whack, but I think it's you get a ton of points for originality in my book, as long as it's not absolutely hideous and ugly and like a child did it. So Seahawks, definitely some of my favorites. Next, I have the Baltimore Ravens, guys. That purple is it's sick, man. It's such a deep purple that I think it's still, I think it's much better than the Minnesota Vikings purple, I do have to say. While I do love the Minnesota Vikings purple, and I'll actually include that here. I'll do them as 2 for 1 because I love their purple. The Baltimore Ravens, they have an all black. They have the purple. They have their color rush purple with the gold numbers. I think that's just a very, very solid uniforms. They do have the white, of course, like everyone usually does, jerseys. And I think all around their options are great. The purple is awesome. Now, another team with some pretty dope uniforms, guys, that I've always loved, and especially, a lot of this love, too, guys, comes from Madden. It sounds a bit silly, but I play a lot of Madden, and, sometimes when you're playing a team, you're just looking for some really cool uniforms to go out there in, and, man, yeah, you really get to see some teams really have crappy selections and have not updated in quite some times, and other teams have really, really cool ones. One team that I'm really a big fan of, actually, is the Miami Dolphins, and it's because they're the only team in the NFL with a color scheme, with the color scheme that they have. Nothing's even similar to it, and back in 2016, I don't know why they actually switched from this color rush, but the all-orange color rush was awesome. Even now, though, they have, the all-white color rush. It's clean, it's simple, but it's sharp. The teal, honestly, it never gets old. It's original. It's very, very cool, and I'm pretty sure they have the alternate where they wear the teal jerseys and the teal pants as well. Miami Dolphins have a sick color scheme. I really, really like it, and once their team finally starts to catch on someday and be as awesome as they were back in the days, then people start to appreciate their uniforms more, because they have some sick uniforms and a great, great color scheme. Now, another team here is the Saints. Saints with that gold. Oh, man. I mean, there's nothing like it. I know the 49ers wear the gold, but the gold and the red, to me, is not as excellent of a combination as the Saints black, white, and gold. I think it's very, very clean. Their all-white color rush with the gold numbers is super clean. I'm not the biggest fan of all-white color rushes, but the Saints one is very, very cool. Also, I love their all-black. I just think, black on anything is honestly very, very clean. So I like the way they do it with their gold. Very, very dope uniforms. Now, I will say my Kansas City Chiefs, just because they're my Chiefs. The red is classic. They have the perfect amount of trim, the yellow trim. Some people refer to it as gold, but it's actually more of a yellow when you look at it. I think it's a well-balanced uniform. The red on top of the white pants, the white jerseys on top of the red pants, the all-red color rush. It's all dope. I wouldn't say it's over some of these. Like, I'm sorry, to turn my back on my own team here a bit, but the Ravens purple, the Saints gold, I mean, come on, it's just sick, and it's more a little bit more original than just red and white. But with that, guys, I want to talk about, wait, I will add one more, guys. The Buffalo Bills, to me, have some great uniforms. They have an all blue alternate. I'm pretty sure their color rush, it's still the all red, I believe. I don't watch a ton of Buffalo Bills games. I think, even though, blue and red are very, very common colors in the NFL, I think they do it very well. If only their team was a bit better, it would be even cooler. But they've got some very, very cool uniforms as well. Now, some teams that need an update, sorry, Indianapolis Colts, but that wasn't an update. I think that team is dying for new uniforms. I think that they can do much better updates than what they've done recently. You know, they can do throwbacks to what they used to wear while also updating the uniforms, like what the 49ers did that this past season with the numbers that just pop off those jerseys. I thought those were really, really cool. You know, the Indianapolis Colts just need to step it up. Another team that actually it's surprising to see. A lot of people love these uniforms, but I think they look really outdated, is the Carolina Panthers. You know, a lot of teams, like you see the Jets, you know, the Seahawks, when you see them using these popping colors, for some reason, they look just way more modern than the Carolina Panthers do. The Panthers uniforms look very, very old and outdated, old school with a silver helmet. I just think with that color scheme, they can do things way more modernized, sort of how the Buccaneers did that modern take on their Glory Day uniforms, where you can tell like it doesn't look as old school as the old school, even though it has the same color scheme. The Panthers, I think, are really outdated and definitely need an update. Now, I'll do one more team that needs an update, but before that, I actually just remembered as I'm speaking here, I forgot to mention one of my favorites is the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they have that green it's original. You know, the Green Bay Packers green is much more of a different green. The Jets green is different green than the Eagles green. It's more of that forest deep green. I love it. I also love their throwback uniforms. Their helmets are great with the wings on them. I think they're just they have all around some pretty cool uniforms. They got the all black, they got the green, the all whites. Very, very cool color schemes and uniforms. So yes, kudos to the Eagles for great uniform schemes. Now the last team I'll mention here before we get into our break that definitely needs an update is one that's they're actually, you know, probably going to be better, really good next season. That's a team I talk about a lot here. The Cardinals, guys, their uniforms really don't say anything to me. The red, it's a common color scheme in the NFL, but it's just like the red and the white to me, it doesn't pop. When I watch them, I still feel like I'm watching an older school style kind of team just because of the way that they look. And I think, with some rebranding, the new era of Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, I think that this is a perfect time for new uniforms in Arizona, and it could do them very, very well. So just wanted to talk about uniforms, guys. Oh, and I will add, honorable mention, guys, the Cleveland Browns don't have bad uniforms. If you think the Cleveland Browns have bad uniforms, you're just unoriginal. Sorry to be so blunt, but I mean, come on. The all orange that they have, the all brown, it's just very unique. No teams have uniforms like the Cleveland Browns, and I loved the uniforms that said, Browns on the pants on the side. I thought that was really, really cool. I think they looked very, very clean. Just because the team sucks doesn't mean their uniforms suck. So I will say that Cleveland Browns, you got some good uniforms, guys. You have a horrible history of losing, but your uniforms are great. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So with that, guys, we'll go into our break here. And we'll wrap up the show right after. Hope you enjoyed this talk here. Let me know in the comments if, I'm completely wrong or some uniforms that I might have missed out on and forgotten, because honestly, that was just off the top of my head, the uniforms I could think of that I actually really enjoyed looking at on TV and watching and playing as in Madden. So let me know what you think, and stay tuned, guys, for the end of the show. So we'll be right back after this short break.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
People, we enter the final segment of the show today, and as always, I'm gonna be doing some wishes. And you know what? Let's just get right into it. You know how it goes, guys. I'm gonna start today with a wish for the 2020 NFL Draft. guys, I'm going to be wishing for the Philadelphia Eagles to, however they need to do this, to land one of the top wide receivers in the draft. Now, look, guys, a lot of people, may talk about the Eagles' needs on defense. They need a corner. They definitely need a safety now that Malcolm Jenkins is gone. They need linebacker, what have you, whatever. But honestly, I don't care about any of that right now because they invested a ton of money in the quarterback position. And when you invest that much money in a quarterback, you better make sure he has weapons to throw to. Right now, he has no weapons to throw to. So the defense sort of takes the back burner for me, in my opinion. Carson Wentz showed us what he could do with no one. What if Carson Wentz had someone like CeeDee Lamb? Could you imagine? There's definitely a scenario in which, the Eagles could possibly trade up to, 16, 17. I doubt that the Cowboys are going to trade with the Eagles at 17, but who knows? Maybe, I believe that, wide receivers, because, the mentality is that there's so many wide receivers in this class, it's either going to go one or two ways. Everyone's going to get scooped up immediately, or everyone's going to slip, it feels like. Coaches or GMs could think, well, if I don't get this guy, there's still this guy. So they might actually wait on some wide receivers, and someone like CeeDee Lamb could slip into reach for the Eagles to trade up just a bit to get with a mid-first round selection. This is of utmost importance, guys. The Eagles need a wide receiver more than anything, I believe, because the face of your franchise struggled alone, basically, with just Zach Ertz. He needs receivers to help him. You can't just go it with just a tight end and, a second-year running back who, Miles Sanders is great and all, but, he didn't, it's not like he is the elite number one guy in the league right now who can carry the team. So, Eagles draft a wide receiver. That'll also really help us fantasy football guys. If you love Carson Wentz for fantasy football, you want him to get a wide receiver. So that'll definitely shoot him up the rankings. And of course, a guy like CeeDee Lamb, definitely going to put up some points in fantasy football. He should. So that's my first wish for today, guys. Now we move on. My second wish for the day is for any team to do what it seems like the unexpected at this point and draft a running back in the first round. Now, why do I want them to do this? Because maybe it'll inspire my Kansas City Chiefs to take a running back with their 32nd overall pick. Now, I'm honestly, yes, I wish for that. That's also, it's sort of, just wishful thinking. And I don't know if I expect that to happen, but, I am very interested in seeing, how long it takes for their first running back to go off the board. People have talked about Jonathan Taylor being super explosive, a guy who can be an every down back and be very, very useful and put in a lot of work in his first year for a team. J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift. People will talk a lot about them as well. There's some pretty good running backs in this class. And it's very interesting, though, that none of them, in a lot of mock drafts, you'll see no running backs go in the first round. And that's just because, not a lot of teams at the positions that they're at, the need fits the player, So I'm very, very interested to see which team just goes with the talent, on the board over their need. So we'll see what happens there. I know a lot of people are, for the Kansas City Chiefs, adding a running back would just be absolutely ridiculous. You're just adding to your spoil of riches. But it's something that we do need. We don't have a home run hitter for running back. We don't have a guy who, when we hand the ball off, I'm not always certain we're going to even get positive yardage or more than 3 to 2 yards. So I think for the Kansas City Chiefs to land a running back would be huge. So my wish is for either for them to land that running back, I've talked about that before, or for some other team to draft one in the first round so that maybe they start falling off the board and the Chiefs get a little desperate there. So that's my second wish. I know it's sort of a weird one, sort of a cheating one, but a wish is a wish, guys. You can't tell me what to wish for. All right. So we move on to our last wish for the day, guys, right before we end the show here. And that wish is for someone to take advantage of the Miami Dolphins potentially passing on Tua Tagovailoa. Now, guys, I completely understand the idea. I completely, the injury history and concern with Tua is frightening. You know, he had what people thought could have been a potential career-ending injury, and no teams are able to check him out and do their physicals. This is like, it's unprecedented, you know, because you are always able to meet with the players, you know, check them out with your doctors. And now, since that's impossible because of the coronavirus pandemic, teams are backing away from the idea of drafting Tua Tagovailoa. It's actually been reported that some teams have taken him off their draft boards completely. So that's pretty crazy to think about because of the talent that Tua Tagovailoa has. Now, I honestly hope that Tua gets drafted in the first round because his talent suggests that he should be. Would I understand if he slipped? Yes, but, you know, we have to, you know, not we, but as teams, you know, you have to take that risk. You know, you don't just, you know, you don't always land on Tom Brady in the 6th round. You know, just to cite my Chiefs, they went up, traded a ton to move up several slots to get Patrick Mahomes at number 10. You know, you have to make those sorts of moves on the guy that you believe in, and it would be unfortunate, you know, because there's a lot of hype surrounding Jordan Love and how he may be a first-round selection at quarterback, and just knowing that Tua Tagovailoa might slip far because of his injury concern is sort of disappointing. So if the Miami Dolphins don't take him, there could be a team, possibly the Chargers, I would like to see take advantage of them, you know, their doubts, and possibly getting their quarterback of the future, so long as he stays healthy. Now, of course, that is a huge risk, but it's something that I would love to see happen for him. He deserves it, and he's a great quarterback. So, with that, guys, that wraps up the show for today. Of course, I want to thank you for listening as always, and I ask that you follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Leave a comment below. Let us know what I'm doing. You know, what we're doing bad, what we're doing good. Always keep it constructive and respectful, guys. Of course, stay safe, guys. Stay healthy. You know, it's a crazy time still, but, you know, hopefully good times are ahead of us. And I just want to say good night. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.